Mohawk, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca all wanted to live in peace. Aionwadha knew well how much the Onondaga wanted to live in peace too, but he knew the power of Aionwadha. There could be no peace unless Aionwadha's heart could be awakened. There could be no peace unless Aionwadha's mind could be cleared. Aionwadha had watched the peacemaker awaken the hearts of the fiercest of the Seneca warriors. He had helped him clear the minds of the Oneida and Cayuga. He knew that peacemaker had awakened the hearts and cleared the minds of the most fierce of all the nations, the Mohawk. And he knew the peacemaker had brought Jagunsase, the great sorceress, and Degele Hoga, the man-eater, to the way of peace. But Aionwadha also knew that Aionwadha was the most cruel of all. He who wakes us up was not sure that Aionwadha's heart could be awakened even by the peacemaker. Aionwadha called the chiefs of all the nations to sit with him. He told them of all Aionwadha had done to stop the peace. He asked them to call for more chiefs to join the council of the Great League of Nations. If we are to change the heart and mind of the dark sorcerer Aionwadha, we must show more strength and more resolve from all the people of the Red Earth. The Mohawk called for 6 more to join the council. The Oneida called for 6, and the Cayuga for 7, and finally the Seneca called for 5 more. The council was growing. Now the group walked eastward toward the land of the Onondaga, and with every step they were joined by more people of the Red Earth. From the east came Mohawk and Oneida, and from the west Seneca and Cayuga, and even the Onondaga from the village north of the stream, and the Onondaga from the village south of the stream joined the procession. 10 and 20 and 30 gathered to join the group. Then 50 and more. The people came to join from every direction. And as they approached the place of Aionwadha, the peacemaker called all the people to him. He held up his hand and silenced them. Village on village, the people all gathered together and stood in silence. The peacemaker spoke. "We will be tested," he said. "Aionwadha will try to divide us one from the other. He will try to cause hatred and violence. He will try to force us to take up weapons against one another." The people of all the villages, Mohawk and Seneca, Oneida and Cayuga, stood tall. They knew what they must do. The peacemaker continued. "We must stand together. We must show him that together we are strong, like the arrows of a bundle, stronger even than evil sorcery." And so on they went. As they walked, eagles gathered overhead and circled around them. In their claws, the eagles held strings of wampum, and they traveled along with the peaceful warriors. The big band of people of the Red Earth walked on, but from his home on an island in the swamp, Aionwadha saw them coming. He conjured up a trick that sent the eagles this way and that. They dropped the wampum from their claws, and feathers flew everywhere. But Aionwadha had warned the people of Aionwadha's ways, and the peacemaker walked on, steady feet walking on. Aionwadha walked on, steady feet behind him. Behind them, the chiefs of all the nations followed, and behind them followed the people, all on steady feet. No one chased the feathers or grabbed for the wampum. All walked on, steady, silent feet. Aionwadha saw the people walking steadily on. Now the peacemaker came to the edge of the water. Aionwadha saw the people, 10, 20, 50, and 100, more and more, all getting in their canoes to come to him. As quickly as he could, he conjured up a hurricane, and the winds whipped round, and faster, and the water rose high and then fell with all its might. The canoes rocked and tipped, and many fell over. People were tossed about in the water. Some got out, some didn't, but still hundreds arrived on the other side. The peacemaker stepped out of his canoe and stood tall. Aionwadha stepped out and stood tall. Chiefs of the Mohawk and the Oneida, the Cayuga and the Seneca, stepped out and gathered their strength. Hundreds of people of the red earth, battered and worn, stepped out, and they gathered together and found their strength once again. And again they withstood the threats of Aionwadha. Together they gave thanks to the Creator. Now they stood on the shore, and the peacemaker called Aionwadha to his side. "Younger brother," he said, "as we walk on the land of this cruel sorcerer, we will meet angry wolves and poison snakes. You, younger brother, must lead the singing of this song of the protectors, so that all the people who follow will be safe." And the peacemaker taught Aionwadha the song. "Now," he said, "you must walk without hesitation. If you hesitate, then the wolves will bite and the snakes will poison. Walk without hesitation, younger brother. It is you who must lead the people to Aionwadha." Aionwadha and the peacemaker walked on. Aionwadha led the singing of the song of the protectors. Wolves walked from the wood and bared their teeth. But Aionwadha sang without hesitation, and the wolves lowered their heads and backed out of sight. Snakes slithered out of holes and slid from under the bush. But Aionwadha sang on. The snakes lifted their heads and flicked their tongues at the people. But Aionwadha sang on, without hesitation, and the snakes lowered their heads and slid back into the darkness of hole and bush. Aionwadha walked on, straight towards Aionwadha. Tall and steady he stepped. But as they drew closer, Aionwadha's rage flared, and he conjured up wind and rain and lightning, and the people were battered about. Aionwadha felt Aionwadha's power, and he remembered. He remembered the ripping of his own heart with the loss of Donidawa, and he remembered the tearing and bleeding of his heart with the loss of each daughter. And he remembered the boulder that sat there when they were gone in his heart. Aionwadha hesitated. The song grew quiet, and the wolves howled, and the snakes hissed, and the winds grew wild, and chaos roared around them. The peacemaker stepped forward. "No, younger brother, we cannot have this. I will lead, and you will follow." And the peacemaker sang the song of the protectors, and the song rang clearly over the ground and through the trees and across the skies, and the wind grew quiet, and the rains rested in the clouds overhead. And the wolves lowered their heads and slid back into the woods. And the snakes fell silent and disappeared. Behind the peacemaker, Aionwadha sang the peace song, and he remembered. He remembered Donidawa's smile, as soft and sweet as the light of Grandmother Moon, and he smiled too. Aionwadha sang louder, and he remembered the laughter of his daughters like the twinkling of 100 stars, and Aionwadha laughed too. And as they approached Aionwadha's house, the song of protection filled the air. Everyone sang together, and the power of the people as one voice mesmerized Aionwadha. He stood as though held captive by the beauty of the song, and he could send no evil against them. Now the people could go right to Aionwadha, and they stood as one embrace of peace, an embrace of kindness, an embrace of healing. So Aionwadha did not fight. Aionwadha set out to comb through Aionwadha's snaking hair, and as the hair released, a little of Aionwadha's hatred slipped away. Aionwadha took herbs to heal his scaly skin, and a little of Aionwadha's anger cooled and floated away. Aionwadha straightened his crooked body, and now Aionwadha's fear began to slip away. All the while, Aionwadha sang of thanks and of healing and of peace. Now Aionwadha was ready to listen. And the peacemaker began at the beginning. Through green corn moon and harvest moon, through winter moon and the time of gathering the maple sap, the peacemaker taught of Sky Woman and Aholuyawagun and Sawiskala. He taught of the clans of he who has great ideas. He taught of the giving of thanks. And the darkness in Aionwadha's mind began to clear. Then Aionwadha stepped up to Aionwadha. He looked into his eyes and saw his mind had been cleared, and then he began. He taught Aionwadha of the teacher and the twirling feathers that danced out thanks to the Creator. He taught of the drum sharing its deep rhythms as feet danced out thanks to Mother Earth. And he taught of the Aionwadha and each man's message from the Creator. And he taught of the peach stone game. And Aionwadha's heart began to warm. The last of the ice in his veins melted away. Degeli, Aionwadha said. It is complete. Degeli, the peacemaker said, it is complete. The mind of the tangled one is clear and his heart glows warm. But the peacemaker looked at Aionwadha. It was not complete. They knew that Aionwadha must be taught the way of peace. And the peacemaker nodded to Aionwadha, and then Aionwadha began. Aionwadha told of the way of the longhouse, of one bowl, one spoon, and of working to be of one mind. Now Aionwadha could understand the great law of peace. And Aionwadha taught of the way of clan mothers and chiefs and faith keepers, all protectors of the great law. He spoke of an end to the cycle of revenge, and he spoke of eagle feathers and deerskin and wampum. If there is someone in this world who has been harmed, Aionwadha began, someone whose heart hangs heavy, someone for whom the sun has been taken from the sky, then take the eagle feather from the vast blue sky and use it to wipe the dust of death from the sad one's ears, so that he can hear the children talk and sing and laugh again. Aionwadha watched as the color returned to Aionwadha's face. And then he continued, if there is someone in this world who knows great pain, Aionwadha began, someone whose heart hangs heavy, someone for whom the sun has been taken from the sky, then take the softest deerskin and use it to wipe the dust of death from the sad one's eyes, so that he can see the children dance and play again. Aionwadha watched as the shine returned to Adodaho's eyes. Then for the one who knows great sorrow, you must prepare strings of wampum to offer. Give these strings of shells, this wampum, to clear the eyes and lift the heart of one who knows great sorrow. With each string of wampum, console the wounded by taking the death from his ears and his eyes and his heart, so that he can hear his children and his nieces and nephews when they speak to him. This clearing of the mind and awakening of the heart will end the cycle of revenge. And two, Aionwadha continued, give him water to drink and say to him, let this water wash away the boulders of sorrow that sit lodged in your throat. Let it gently wash away the lump of grief, so you may speak from your heart and carry the message of peace. This is the great law of peace, and it will bring the great peace to the people of Red Earth. Adodaho stood up. His hair lay long and straight down his straight back. His skin lay smooth and soft over his body. His eyes shone with life. But still, Adodaho was not ready to be like any other chief. His power was great, and though his heart glowed warm now, he wanted his power to be honored. The peacemaker spoke quietly with Aionwadha. Adodaho is much healed. His mind is now clear and his heart glows warm. But he is still filled with power hunger. We must be sure this hunger serves peace and not vengeance. In the bundle of arrows, all arrows serve the bundle no matter how big they may be. On the Council of the Great League of Nations, all chiefs will have the same power, for it takes only one to say no, and any can say it. So understanding this, let us honor his power by making him chairman of the council. Aionwadha nodded, understanding well the power of the bundle of sticks. So, continued the peacemaker, let us keep this rule of coming to one mind for working together. But let us give Adodaho the name of Chiefs of Chief. His voice will be as strong as he chooses, but his vote will be only that of every chief. Aionwadha replied, since all must agree before action can be taken, let us also give the Onondaga more seats on the council and hold the Council of the Great Peace here in Onondaga. Then Adodaho will put his power to protecting the great peace for all. The two men brought the idea to Adodaho, and with the respect they had given him and the Onondaga, Adodaho agreed. Now, all were in agreement. Peace could happen. The Great League of Nations was ready to begin the work of peace. Then the peacemaker called all of the chiefs of the Mohawk, and all of the chiefs of the Oneida, and all of the chiefs of the Seneca and Cayuga to join hands in a circle with the Onondaga. Now, he said, we are one made of many. From now on, we shall be known as the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse. Then the 50 chiefs made a great circle around a great white pine tree. The peacemaker stepped forward and spoke. Here in the center of the circle stands white pine, the great tree of peace. Its roots spread in the 4 directions: north, south, east, west. They reach out to the ends of Turtle Island to invite all who would choose to join the Great League of Nations to come and be one with us. Aionwadha looked at White Pine, and the fire in his heart grew warmer. Overhead, an eagle circled, and Aionwadha looked up. Yes, it is so. It is according to the Creator's instructions. Then the peacemaker walked to the tree and pulled one bundle of green needles from it. 5 needles, he said. 5 needles in each bundle of white pine. Together they grow. Together they have green life through all the moons of the year. 5 together in a bundle, this tree shall always tell of our strength, the strength of the Haudenosaunee. 5 peoples joined together. The peacemaker walked to the white pine tree and pulled it up from the ground, and a huge hole was made beneath its roots. And through the hole ran an underground stream. Go, said the peacemaker, go and gather the weapons of war from your villages. Bring the weapons here and throw them into this hole. All the people hurried to bring their weapons to the huge hole, and they threw all the weapons in, and the stream carried them away. The peacemaker returned the great tree of peace to its place, and everyone joined in replacing the earth around it. Then Aionwadha took the belt he had been weaving from his pouch, and he handed the belt to the peacemaker. In the center, the great tree of peace, the place of the Onondaga, the place of the great council. 2 nations are shown to the east and 2 to the west. It is according to the instructions of the Creator. This wampum belt will be a reminder of the promises between us. When we see it, we will see that we are all part of one longhouse, all equal, all there to care for the other. The peacemaker took the wampum belt and the bundle of 5 arrows, and he set them at the base of the great tree of peace. These, he said, will be the symbols of the great law of peace. Wherever these symbols are seen, the people will remember the great law of peace and continue to commit their hearts and minds to living in harmony. The road of peace extends beyond the last nations east and west as an invitation that all across Turtle Island can follow this road back to the heart of peace. As Grandmother Moon makes her journey from midwinter to maple and thunder and planting and around again and again and again, this day will fade from memory. The ways of peace will be forgotten, and people will suffer, and hatred and violence will grow again. But this great tree of peace will stand here in Onondaga territory, tall and strong, reminding us that we are joined to one another like the roots of this tree. It will remind us how hard we must work for peace, just as we have today. And if ever the great law of peace is threatened, the 50 chiefs of the Haudenosaunee shall come and circle the great tree of peace again, arms linked to protect the peace and hold the peace until it is right once again. The peacemaker turned to Aionwadha and nodded, and Aionwadha turned to the 50 chiefs. It is according to the message of the Creator, he said. Now we must all return home and carry the great law of peace with us. Carry the old ways to our children and our children's children and their children's children. And Aionwadha returned to the longhouse on the other side of the stream, where he could live in the old ways he had learned at the knee of Luagsoda. Here the children gathered round him, and he taught of the giving of thanks, the great feather and drum dances. He taught of Aionwadha and the peach stone game, and he taught of the great law of peace. Aionwadha danced the rabbit and the robin and the moccasin dances, and every day the laughter of children, the stories of the wind, and the song of birds filled his ears and his heart. And every day, as elder brother Sun returned from his travels, he who wakes us up was the first to awake. He arose and walked to the great tree of peace and greeted the day. It is good to be human, and to be alive is a gift.